Here's a simple image to start. 3 years ago, every big company had a chatbot pilot. In 2026, the interesting stuff isn't on a splashy demo screen. It's the quiet AI that closes out your invoices overnight, routes a frustrated customer to the right specialist, or schedules maintenance before a machine fails. That's a big shift, and it raises a practical question. How do you let AI run real business workflows without blowing up cost, trust, or compliance? So let's set expectations. The story this year isn't the flashiest new model, it's the unglamorous work of architecture, governance, and cost control. Analysts are seeing budgets still growing, but with far tighter focus. In other words, leaders are picking a few high-value workflows and going deep, instead of sprinkling AI everywhere. If you're exploring this space, here's the key. AI is moving from a feature to a foundation. It's becoming the new operating system for how work actually flows. Now, what changed? In 2025 and early 2026, a lot of organizations hit the same wall. Pilots were easy, scaling wasn't, data was messy, tools were fragmented, governance lagged, so the direction shifted. Reports from big consulting firms and research groups converged on a similar playbook. Make AI workflow-centric, not novelty-centric. Senior leaders pick a small number of processes, claims handling, onboarding, field maintenance, and redesign them end-to-end with AI in the loop. You'll hear more about AI agents and copilots, not as cute assistants, but as engines inside those workflows. Analysts even forecast we'll see copilots in most enterprise apps by mid-decade, and some predictions suggest agentic workflows could handle roughly half the tasks in certain processes. Think of that as a forward-looking estimate, not a guarantee. So let's slow that down for a second. The theme isn't replace people, it's rebuild the process so humans supervise and steer, while software handles the busy work. How does this actually work under the hood? 2 quick definitions in plain English. An AI agent is software that can look at context, data, tickets, sensor feeds, reason about a goal, and take actions across systems. It might update a record, call an API, submit a form, or escalate to a human. A copilot is the embedded assistant inside tools like your code editor or CRM. It helps you write, decide, or draft, with you still in control of the final call. Here's the thing. The real magic appears when AI becomes workflow native, not app native. Instead of each app bolting on an AI feature, the business runs on an event-driven backbone. A new order arrives, a service ticket spikes in urgency, or a sensor flags an anomaly. Those events trigger agents that orchestrate across CRM, ERP, billing, and support. In other words, the unit of design moves from what can AI do in this app to what does the end-to-end process need to achieve. What supports this behind the scenes is a unified AI platform. If that sounds abstract, picture a shared utility layer. It handles model access, prompt and feature management, who can see which data, and the vital stuff, observability, and cost controls. Why does that matter? Because without a shared platform, teams reinvent everything. Security, logging, cost tracking, over and over. With one, you can route a task to the right model. A small, fast model for routine summaries, a larger model for complex reasoning, or even a domain-tuned model that knows your jargon. You get speed where you need it and savings where you can. Think of it like an electrical grid with smart meters and circuit breakers. The power's available, but you can see who's using it, at what level, and you can shut off a faulty line before it burns down the house. Then there are industry cloud platforms. These are cloud stacks tailored for sectors like healthcare, finance, or manufacturing. They come with pre-built data models and compliance controls you'd otherwise spend months building. They accelerate you, but they also increase your strategic dependence on a vendor. So portability, moving your models and schemas later, becomes a real design question. Now, governance. Not the fun word, but it's the oxygen of this whole system. The modern approach looks like policy as code. Who can use which data and which models baked into the platform? It includes AI observability to track performance drift, bias, and cost. It adds automated testing and red teaming for generative systems, and audit logs for accountability. Here's what actually matters here. Trust isn't a document. It's engineered into the pipeline. What does this mean for the people building and running systems? For engineers and platform teams, the center of gravity moves to cloud-native, API-first, observable architecture. AI services become standard building blocks, like storage or identity, not one-off integrations. That's a quieter change, but it's huge. For architects and tech leaders, the winning pattern we're seeing is to choose a handful of high-value workflows and go narrow and deep. Redesign the process, not just the app. Build the guardrails alongside the features. For business leaders, expectations matter. Most of the reliable ROI right now comes from foundational capabilities. Better search, ranking, recommendations, and personalization used inside existing workflows. Conversational agents and complex multi-step agents are advancing, but they benefit from patience, clean data, and staged rollouts. For risk and legal teams, AI is becoming a new risk surface, much like cybersecurity. Responsible AI isn't an add-on, it's now a requirement if agents are going to touch regulated processes. That means audits, documentation, and clear escalation paths when the AI isn't confident. And for the workforce, job design is changing. More roles will shift from doing the task end-to-end to supervising, validating, and improving AI-generated outputs. Many analysts expect a significant share of large companies to introduce mandatory AI training. The skills side isn't a side project anymore. Let's talk risks because they're real. Governance often lags deployment. If an agent can perform a large chunk of tasks in a workflow, a small misalignment can have big consequences. That's why sandboxing, audit trails, and human-in-the-loop steps remain important, especially early on. Shadow AI is another one. When teams paste sensitive data into unsanctioned tools, you get data leakage and compliance headaches. Many organizations are responding by offering an official platform with embedded policies and making it the easy default. Vendor lock-in is a trade-off. Industry clouds and unified platforms speed you up, but they also centralize your logic and data in someone else's garden. Portability planning, exportable schemas, clear contractual terms, and design for model swapping can soften that. Costs can surprise you. Large models, used casually at scale, create noisy cloud bills. Energy use matters too. Routing to smaller models when you can, and monitoring usage with alerts and quotas can keep the economics sane. Finally, the hype around agents deserves a measured view. Estimates about agents handling half the tasks are scenario-based. In practice, messy data, edge cases, and real-world integration still need care. The more regulated the workflow, the more your governance maturity needs to lead the rollout. So, how do you think about implementation in 2026 without getting lost in the noise? A few practical takeaways if this applies to your work. Pick 2 or 3 high-value workflows and go deep. Claims intake, order to cash, field maintenance, define success metrics up front, cycle time, error rate, revenue lift, and measure from day one. Build a thin slice of a unified AI platform early. Centralize model access, prompts, data policies, and monitoring. It doesn't need to be fancy, it does need to be shared. Design for cost and trust at the same time. Route routine tasks to efficient models, hold out the big models for the hard stuff, and set usage alerts. Treat observability, quality, bias, drift as part of your product, not an afterthought. Decide buy versus build with your eyes open. Industry clouds can cut months off compliance work, but plan for portability. Document your ontologies and workflows so they're not trapped in one provider. Invest in literacy and change management. Short role-based training goes a long way. Make escalation paths obvious. Reward teams for catching and correcting AI mistakes early. Start agentic automation in supervised mode. Give agents clear scopes, tools they're allowed to use, and confidence thresholds. Add a human checkpoint for high-impact actions, then dial up autonomy as data quality and monitoring improve. Let that sink in for a second. These aren't model tricks. They're operating choices. They determine whether AI becomes background plumbing that quietly pays for itself, or a headline you have to explain to the board. Where does this go over the next couple of years? Expect AI to feel less visible and more normal. It'll be embedded in CRM, ERP, HR, and operations. Success won't be a demo. It'll be process metrics moving the right way. Responsible AI will mature, pushed by regulators and boards. Expect repeatable practices, documented model choices, auditable changes, and integrated monitoring. While competitive advantage will lean less on owning the biggest foundation model and more on encoding your proprietary data and workflows, often via domain-tuned models and knowledge graphs that understand your vocabulary and edge cases. On the org chart, platform engineering and AI enablement teams become central, similar to the rise of DevOps a decade ago. And economically, we'll likely see a mix of efficient, domain-specific models for most tasks, with a few heavyweight models reserved for the hardest problems, routed by policy, watched by observability. A few signals to watch. agent deployments moving beyond pilots, published audits of responsible AI in production, real regulated case studies on industry clouds, and survey data showing whether today's cautious maturity turns into durable, repeatable results. Let's bring it back to you. If you're a product manager, an architect, or a business leader, the shift to AI as core infrastructure is less about a single breakthrough and more about stitching things together: process, platform, people, and P&L. The organizations that take that seriously aren't necessarily louder. They're just quietly building the new operating system for how their business runs. If you found this useful, a like and subscribe helps us keep making these videos. Thanks for watching.